Intelligence Officer Captain Scarlett Cipher. Wilson stared at the casualty reports with growing horror. SEAL Team Bravo had lost 4 men in the last 3 weeks, each mission ending in perfectly coordinated enemy ambushes that suggested someone was feeding their operational plans directly to hostile forces. But when she began investigating the intelligence leaks, the evidence pointed to the one possibility that no one wanted to consider. The traitor wasn't in the intelligence community, wasn't in command, and wasn't some faceless enemy spy. The betrayer was wearing the same uniform, carrying the same weapons, and sharing the same brotherhood as the men who were dying because of his actions. Captain Scarlett Wilson sat in her office at Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters at 0300 hours, surrounded by classified files, intelligence reports, and photographs of dead American servicemen. At 31 years old, she had auburn hair that she kept in a regulation bun, green eyes that missed nothing, and a mind that had been trained to find patterns in chaos. Her specialty was counterintelligence, identifying threats to American Special Operations Forces and neutralizing them before they could cause damage. But the damage had already been done. The latest casualty report sat open on her desk. Petty Officer First Class Michael Torres, age 24, killed in action during a supposedly routine reconnaissance mission that had turned into a massacre. He was the 4th SEAL to die in 3 weeks, and the 12th to fall in the past 2 months. Something was fundamentally wrong with SEAL Team Bravo's operational security, and Scarlett had been tasked with finding out what. The pattern was undeniable. Every mission that Team Bravo had undertaken in the past 8 weeks had been compromised in some way. Not failed due to bad luck or tactical errors, but specifically compromised by enemies who seemed to know exactly where the SEALs would be when they would arrive and what tactics they would employ. Operation Silent Thunder, SEAL Team Bravo had been tasked with infiltrating a terrorist compound to capture a high-value target. They'd arrived to find the compound empty, except for explosives that had been positioned to maximize casualties during their planned entry route. Operation Dark Horse. A rescue mission to extract captured American contractors had turned into an ambush when enemy forces were waiting in precisely the positions needed to trap the SEAL team in a kill zone. Operation Steel Rain. An intelligence-gathering mission had resulted in a running firefight when the team encountered enemies who had been pre-positioned along their planned extraction route. Each operation had been planned using different intelligence sources, different communication channels, and different operational timelines. The only common factor was SEAL Team Bravo itself. Scarlett pulled up the personnel files for Team Bravo on her secure computer. 12 men, all with exemplary service records, all with top-secret security clearances, all with years of successful operations behind them. If one of them was working for the enemy, he was the most unlikely traitor in military history. But the evidence was pointing exactly in that direction. Scarlett began her investigation the way she'd been trained, by assuming nothing and trusting no one. She started with communication intercepts, looking for any evidence of unauthorized contact between Team Bravo personnel and outside parties. The National Security Agency provided her with months of electronic surveillance data, phone calls, emails, text messages, and internet activity for every member of the team. She spent days analyzing the data, looking for patterns that might indicate covert communication with hostile forces. Nothing. The SEALSE communications were exactly what she would expect from elite military personnel: contact with family members, routine administrative correspondence, and the kind of casual interaction that marked close-knit military units. Next, she examined financial records. Traders were often motivated by money, and large or unexplained financial transactions could indicate payments from foreign intelligence services. Again, nothing unusual. The SEALSE financial activities were consistent with their pay grades and personal circumstances. No unexplained deposits, No suspicious purchases, no evidence of sudden wealth. Scarlett expanded her investigation to include travel records, looking for any indication that team members had made unauthorized trips or had contact with foreign nationals in locations that could facilitate intelligence sharing. The results were equally clean. Every trip, every leave period, every temporary duty assignment was properly documented and consistent with normal military activities. After a week of investigation, Scarlett was beginning to wonder if the problem might be something other than a traitor within the team. Perhaps the intelligence leaks were coming from somewhere else in the operational chain, headquarters staff, communication personnel, or support units that had access to mission planning. But then she discovered the first anomaly. Buried in the routine administrative traffic was a single email that caught her attention. Petty Officer First Class. David Hawk Morrison had sent a message to his sister 3 days before Operation Silent Thunder. The message was innocuous, casual family conversation about upcoming plans and recent activities. But the timing was suspicious. Scarlett cross-referenced the email timestamp with the mission planning timeline. Morrison had sent the message exactly 6 hours after the final operational briefing for Silent Thunder, and 18 hours before the team's deployment. She examined the email more carefully. On the surface, it was exactly what it appeared to be: a brother updating his sister about his life, but Scarlett had been trained to look beyond surface appearances. "Hey sis, hope you're doing well. Things are busy here as usual. We're planning a camping trip this weekend. Should be fun, but might be a little challenging with the weather. The forecast shows storms moving in from the northeast around midnight Saturday. We'll probably set up camp near the old stone bridge you remember from when we were kids. If the weather gets too bad, we might have to cut the trip short and head back early Sunday morning. Love you, Dave." Scarlett stared at the message for several minutes before the pattern began to emerge. Morrison was describing a camping trip that would take place over the weekend. Operation Silent Thunder had been scheduled for a weekend deployment. The storms from the northeast could be a reference to the planned approach route. The old stone bridge might indicate the target compound, which was located near a distinctive stone bridge that appeared in satellite imagery. But it could also just be a coincidence. Brothers did talk to sisters about camping trips, and weather was a common topic of conversation. Scarlett decided to examine Morrison's other emails more carefully. What she found made her hands shake. Morrison had been sending similar messages to his sister before every compromised operation. The language was always casual, always seemingly innocent, but the timing was always suspicious. And when Scarlett began analyzing the content with the assumption that it was coded intelligence, the pattern became undeniable. Morrison was using family emails to communicate operational details to an unknown recipient, but Scarlett needed more evidence before she could make accusations that would destroy a SEAL's career and potentially compromise ongoing operations. She began monitoring Morrison's communications in real time, using her counterintelligence authority to track every phone call, email, and text message. She also initiated discreet surveillance of his activities on base and during off-duty hours. What she discovered over the next week confirmed her worst suspicions. Morrison was indeed communicating with enemy forces, but his methods were far more sophisticated than simple email codes. He was using a technique called Steganography, hiding digital information within innocent-looking image files. The photos Morrison regularly sent to his sister contained hidden data embedded in the image pixels. To anyone examining the emails casually, they appeared to be normal family photos, pictures of Morrison with friends, images of local landmarks, routine snapshots that any serviceman might send home. But when Scarlett used specialized software to extract the hidden data, she found detailed intelligence about SEAL Team Bravo's operations, target locations, approach routes, timing, personnel assignments, and tactical plans. Morrison was providing the enemy with everything they needed to kill his own teammates. Scarlett faced a dilemma that went beyond normal counterintelligence procedures. If she reported her findings immediately, Morrison would be arrested and the intelligence leak would be stopped. But she would also lose the opportunity to use his communications to feed false information to the enemy, potentially turning the intelligence channel into a weapon against hostile forces. More importantly, she needed to understand the scope of Morrison's betrayal. Was he working alone, or was he part of a larger espionage network? Who was receiving his intelligence, and how were they using it to coordinate attacks against American forces? Scarlett made the decision to continue monitoring Morrison while developing a plan to neutralize the threat in a way that would provide maximum strategic advantage. She began by creating false operational plans for SEAL Team Bravo. Working with the team's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Steele Rodriguez, she developed fictional missions that would appear authentic to anyone monitoring the team's activities. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. If Morrison was indeed the traitor, he would attempt to communicate the false operational details to his handlers. Enemy forces would position themselves to intercept the fictional mission, exposing their methods and capabilities while walking into a trap that SEAL Team Bravo would be waiting to spring. But first, Scarlett needed to confirm Morrison's treachery beyond any possible doubt. She worked with the NSA to trace the ultimate destination of Morrison's hidden communications. The digital trail led through multiple proxy servers and encrypted communication channels, but eventually terminated at IP addresses associated with a foreign intelligence service that had been targeting American Special Operations Forces for years. The evidence was conclusive. Petty Officer First Class David Morrison was a spy working for a hostile foreign government, and his intelligence had directly resulted in the deaths of his own teammates. Scarlett's next challenge was determining how to handle Morrison's arrest in a way that would maximize operational advantage while ensuring that justice was served for the men who had died because of his betrayal. She developed a plan that would require precise timing and coordination between multiple agencies, but would allow SEAL Team Bravo to turn Morrison's treachery into a strategic weapon against the enemy forces that had been hunting them. Operation Turncoat began on a Tuesday morning when SEAL Team Bravo received orders for what Morrison believed was a high-priority mission to capture a terrorist leader operating from a compound in hostile territory. In reality, the mission was a carefully orchestrated deception designed to expose the enemy's operational capabilities while providing irrefutable evidence of Morrison's guilt. Scarlett monitored Morrison's communications as the team prepared for the fictional operation. As expected, Morrison sent coded intelligence to his foreign handlers, providing them with details about the team's planned approach, timing, and objectives. What Morrison didn't know was that SEAL Team Bravo was actually preparing for a completely different operation, one that would place them in a position to observe and engage the enemy forces that would respond to Morrison's intelligence. The trap was sprung perfectly. Enemy forces moved to intercept SEAL Team Bravo at the location Morrison had specified in his communications. Instead of finding vulnerable American Special Operations personnel, they encountered a coordinated ambush involving multiple U.S. military units that had been pre-positioned based on Scarlett's intelligence analysis. The resulting engagement was decisive. Enemy forces were eliminated or captured, their equipment and communication devices were seized for intelligence analysis, and their operational methods were thoroughly documented. But more importantly, Morrison's communications had been monitored throughout the operation, providing conclusive evidence of his treachery that could be used in military court proceedings. Morrison was arrested immediately after the team's return to base. The evidence against him was overwhelming. recorded communications with foreign intelligence services, financial records showing payments from enemy sources that had been hidden through sophisticated money laundering operations, and testimony from captured enemy personnel who identified him as their source within SEAL Team Bravo. The investigation revealed that Morrison had been working as a spy for over 2 years, providing intelligence that had resulted in the deaths of at least 16 American servicemen and the compromise of dozens of classified operations. His motivation was a combination of financial desperation and ideological corruption. Morrison had accumulated significant gambling debts that he couldn't pay on a military salary, and foreign intelligence services had exploited his financial vulnerability to recruit him as an asset. But the damage Morrison had caused went beyond the immediate casualties. His betrayal had compromised operational methods, revealed technological capabilities, and forced changes to security procedures that would affect American special operations for years to come. The trial of David Morrison became one of the most significant military espionage cases in recent history. Scarlett's testimony was crucial in securing his conviction on charges of treason, espionage, and murder. Morrison was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But for Scarlett, the case represented more than just the successful identification and prosecution of a traitor. It had demonstrated the vulnerability of even the most elite military units to infiltration by hostile intelligence services, and the critical importance of robust counterintelligence procedures. In the aftermath of Morrison's arrest, Scarlett was tasked with developing new security protocols for special operations forces. Her recommendations included enhanced background investigations, continuous monitoring of personnel communications, psychological evaluation programs, and improved financial oversight for military personnel with access to classified information. 6 months after Morrison's conviction, Scarlett received a call from Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "Scarlett, I wanted to thank you personally for what you did. Morrison's betrayal could have destroyed this team, but your investigation saved lives and gave us the chance to turn his treachery against our enemies. Sir, I was just doing my job." "No, you did more than that. You uncovered a threat that no one else had detected, and you handled the investigation in a way that maximized our operational advantage. That kind of strategic thinking is exactly what we need in counterintelligence." Harper paused. "I also wanted to let you know that SEAL Team Delta has had 0 compromised operations since Jackson's arrest. Your work didn't just solve the problem, it eliminated it completely." Scarlett felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond professional accomplishment. The men of SEAL Team Delta were no longer walking into ambushes because someone they trusted was betraying them. They could focus on their missions without worrying about whether their own teammate was working for the enemy. But the Jackson case had also taught Scarlett important lessons about the nature of betrayal in military organizations. Traitors weren't always obvious outsiders or obviously suspicious individuals. Sometimes they were the people who seemed most trustworthy, most committed, and most integrated into the military community. Jackson had been well liked by his teammates, respected by his superiors, and trusted with the lives of the men he served alongside. His betrayal had been particularly devastating because it violated the fundamental trust that held military units together. A year later, Scarlett was promoted to major and assigned to lead the newly created Special Operations Counterintelligence Division. Her mission was to develop comprehensive security programs that would protect American Special Operations Forces from infiltration by hostile intelligence services. Her first major initiative was the implementation of the Guardian Protocol, a system of continuous security monitoring that used advanced data analysis to identify potential security threats, before they could cause damage. The Guardian Protocol analyzed communication patterns, financial activities, behavioral changes, and psychological indicators to identify personnel who might be vulnerable to foreign recruitment or who might already be working for hostile intelligence services. The system had built-in safeguards to protect individual privacy and prevent abuse, but it provided commanders with early warning of potential security threats that could be addressed through counseling, reassignment, or investigation as appropriate. 6 months after the Guardian Protocol was implemented, it identified 3 potential security threats within special operations units. 2 cases involved personnel who were experiencing financial difficulties that made them vulnerable to foreign recruitment, and 1 case involved someone who was already in preliminary contact with hostile intelligence services. All 3 cases were resolved through intervention before any classified information was compromised or any operations were endangered. But Scarlett's most significant contribution to special operations security was her development of the Trust But Verify training program, a comprehensive education initiative that taught military personnel how to recognize and report potential security threats within their own units. The program was designed to help service members understand that protecting operational security wasn't just the responsibility of counterintelligence professionals. It was everyone's responsibility to watch for signs that their teammates might be under stress, facing personal problems, or behaving in ways that could indicate security concerns. The training emphasized that reporting suspicious behavior wasn't about betraying fellow service members. It was about protecting them from making mistakes that could destroy their careers and endanger their teammates. During her implementation of these programs, Scarlett encountered resistance from some military personnel who felt that increased security measures were undermining the trust and camaraderie that were essential to special operations effectiveness. She addressed these concerns through a series of briefings and training sessions that emphasized the complementary nature of security and trust. Security measures don't replace trust, she would explain to skeptical audiences. They protect trust by ensuring that the people who have earned our confidence are worthy of it. When we know that our teammates have been thoroughly vetted and continuously monitored for signs of compromise, we can trust them more completely, not less. Her approach proved effective. Within 18 months of implementing the new security protocols, reports of suspicious behavior from unit members increased by 300%, but false alarms decreased by 60% as personnel became better trained in recognizing genuine security concerns versus normal stress responses. The enhanced security measures also had unexpected positive effects on unit morale and performance. When service members knew that their teammates were being protected from exploitation by hostile intelligence services, they felt more secure in sharing sensitive information and relying on each other during dangerous operations. 3 years after the Morrison case, Scarlett was invited to speak at the annual Special Operations Forces Conference about her experiences investigating internal security threats. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the case that brought me here today wasn't just about catching a spy. It was about understanding that our greatest vulnerability isn't always external threats. Sometimes it's the threats that come from within our own organizations." She clicked to a slide showing casualty statistics from before and after Morrison's arrest. When SEAL Team Bravo was being betrayed by one of their own, they lost 12 men in 2 months. After we eliminated the internal threat, they completed 46 consecutive operations without a single casualty attributable to intelligence compromise. The audience was silent, absorbing the implications of those numbers. "The lesson isn't that we should be suspicious of our teammates," Scarlett continued. "The lesson is that we should be protective of them. We should watch for signs that they're struggling, offer help when they need it, and create an environment where people feel comfortable seeking assistance before their problems become security threats." She clicked to another slide showing the components of the Guardian Protocol. Modern counterintelligence isn't about catching spies after they've caused damage. It's about preventing good people from becoming threats in the first place and creating systems that can identify problems before they escalate to the level where they endanger lives. After her presentation, Scarlett was approached by a young Navy intelligence officer. "Ma'am, I wanted to ask you about something. How do you balance trust and security? How do you maintain the kind of unit cohesion that special operations requires while still protecting against internal threats?" Scarlett considered the question. "Lieutenant, that's exactly the right question to ask, and the answer is that trust and security aren't opposing forces. They're complementary elements of the same system." "Ma'am, real trust isn't blind faith. Real trust is based on knowing that the people around you are committed to the same mission and the same values that you are. Security measures don't undermine that trust. They protect it by ensuring that the people who have earned trust are worthy of it." The lieutenant nodded. "So security isn't about assuming people are threats. Security is about creating an environment where threats can't develop or can't succeed if they do develop. It's about taking care of our people so they don't become vulnerable to exploitation and having systems in place to detect problems before they become crises." 5 years after the Morrison case, Scarlett was selected to head the newly created Joint Special Operations Counterintelligence Command, a position that gave her responsibility for protecting all American Special Operations Forces from internal and external security threats. Her first briefing to the Joint Chiefs of Staff included a comprehensive assessment of security threats facing Special Operations Forces and recommendations for addressing those threats. The Morrison case taught us that our security measures were focused on external threats while largely ignoring internal vulnerabilities, she told the assembled military leadership. "We've corrected that imbalance, but we need to continue evolving our approach as the threat environment changes." She presented data showing the effectiveness of the security programs that had been developed following Morrison's arrest. Since implementing the Guardian Protocol and Trust but Verify training, we've identified and resolved 43 potential security threats before they could cause operational damage. We've prevented an estimated 200 casualties and protected hundreds of classified operations from compromise. But Scarlett's presentation also included warnings about emerging threats that required new countermeasures. Hostile intelligence services are adapting to our improved security measures. They're using more sophisticated recruitment techniques, exploiting social media and online platforms, and targeting family members of military personnel to gain access to classified information. She outlined plans for next-generation security measures that would address these evolving threats while maintaining the operational effectiveness that made American Special Operations Forces the most capable in the world. "Our goal isn't to create a security state where no one trusts anyone," Scarlett explained. "Our goal is to create an environment where trust is earned, maintained, and protected through systems that prevent betrayal and support the people who serve with honor." The Morrison case had begun as a counterintelligence investigation into suspicious casualty patterns. It had evolved into a comprehensive transformation of how American Special Operations Forces approached internal security. But for Scarlett, the most important outcome wasn't the security improvements or the institutional changes. It was the knowledge that SEAL Team Bravo and dozens of other special operations units could now focus on their missions without worrying about whether someone in their own ranks was working for the enemy. Because trust wasn't just about faith in your teammates. Trust was about having systems in place that ensured your teammates were worthy of that faith. And in a world where the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure often came down to whether operational plans remained secret until the moment of execution, That kind of trust wasn't just important. It was a matter of life and death. The men and women of American Special Operations Forces deserved to know that when they put their lives on the line for their country, their own teammates weren't putting knives in their backs. Scarlett Wilson had spent her career ensuring that they could make that assumption with confidence. And in a profession where assumptions could be fatal, that was perhaps the most valuable service she could provide. Because sometimes the most important battles weren't fought against foreign enemies in distant lands. Sometimes they were fought against betrayal and corruption within your own ranks, where the consequences of failure were measured not just in operational setbacks, but in the lives of the people who trusted you to keep them safe. And sometimes the most important victories weren't achieved through force of arms, but through the patient, methodical work of ensuring that the people who wore the uniform were worthy of the trust that uniform represented. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.